Hi folks, the Filipino P here. And today I'm gonna be spitting some truth bombs for anyone who's thinking about marrying a woman from the Philippines. The question you're all gonna face is where you wanna live. In her country, or do you wanna take her back home to yours? Now you could have found the sweetest woman in the world, but if you make the wrong choice about where to live, you might have just made the worst mistake of your life. And here's why. So you visit the Philippines or you go online and you meet a Filipina that ticks all your boxes. But you live in one country and she lives in another. So what you gonna do? Now there's a lot of people who don't want to deal with this subject, so they just put it off until much later. But it's something you really need to think about early on. It's such an important decision with so many potential pitfalls that you need to take a cold hard look so you can avoid making a tragic mistake. Now I want to start with an important disclaimer. Not all marriages between mixed couples are doomed to fail or guaranteed to succeed no matter where you choose to live. I have Filipino friends that are happily married to their Western husbands who live in both places. And of course, I've seen a lot of broken relationships too, so it certainly doesn't depend only on geography. The sad fact is, around 50% of all marriages won't stand the test of time. That's scary enough. But when you're dealing with two different cultures and sometimes an age gap on top of that, you can find yourself on the wrong side of that 50% real fast. Now, if you're not very familiar with the Philippines, it's important to understand that when it comes to the desirability of men and women, our cultures are like opposite mirror images of each other. In the West, an older man can become invisible to women, and he might have fewer options when it comes to finding a long-term relationship. But here in the East, he becomes a hot commodity at any age. And there's plenty of beautiful and desirable women that are still available. So if you decide to look in a new country for love, it might not be a bad idea to head this way. Now, if you're coming here for the first time, there's a strange phenomenon that you might have heard about, but you probably won't believe it until you experience it. And I promise you, it's true. When you arrive in the Philippines, you're immediately gonna feel like you entered the Twilight Zone. Maybe for the first time in decades, you'll suddenly be aware of female eyes on you, even the eyes of women you think are way out of your league. And you'll notice it's not just you. When you take a look at the other foreign guys around you, you'll see men walking hand in hand with women they couldn't possibly even dream of getting back home. It makes you feel powerful, younger, desirable, like somehow you went back in time. It's a very bizarre and intoxicating feeling, and you wonder, how the hell did this happen? And if you're already a younger guy, you'll get even more attention than you're used to, and you feel like the women are undressing you with their eyes. It quickly becomes pretty obvious that the advantage has suddenly swung in your favor, and you've got your pick of the litter. You feel like a king in search of his queen. But here's where a lot of you make your first mistake. You're not used to being the prize, and you still don't understand the good position you're in, so you rush things. A lot of you settle on the very first woman who meets your needs, and once you get a bad case of tunnel vision, you pass right by all the other women you could have dated. If you're smart, you'll slow things down and date a lot of women while you're in the Philippines. Keep interviewing potential mates until you think you finally found the woman of your dreams. But understand that finding her is only half the battle. It's the vetting phase that can be the most important of all, because people aren't always who they appear to be, and it can take a while to see someone's true face. Spend enough time together to be sure that her intentions are honorable, and that she is who she says she is. No hidden children, no lingering exes, no mental disorders that only become apparent during an argument. And keep asking yourself, do I really want to be with this woman forever? I understand that a lot of you guys are just here on vacation. You just don't have months or years to test drive a relationship. And you're using your very limited time as a scouting mission for finding a Filipina before going back home. That puts you at a real disadvantage, especially if you're planning to live in your country and fly her there to be with you. You're taking a huge risk that she's not a Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde, and there's just no way to tell what you're actually signing up for. I've never understood how a guy can spend a week in the Philippines and after just 7 days, he can be so absolutely sure he met his one and only that he's willing to risk his financial future by flying a virtual stranger back to his home in the West. It boggles the mind, and yet I hear from guys like that almost every day. And what am I supposed to say? Congratulations? I know that's the polite thing to do, but I'd rather be honest than polite. So if they haven't already tied the knot, I always beg them to rethink the decision. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And to be honest, sometimes they actually succeed, but that still doesn't make it a good bet. I think you should get to know a woman for at least a few months, hopefully even a year before taking a huge gamble like that. And that's what it is, a gamble. You need to know each other well enough to finish each other's sentences, to know each other's favorite foods and TV shows, and you have to know how she behaves when the chips are down. You need to know each other's weaknesses and secrets and flaws, not just the good stuff that attracted you to each other. But however long you think it takes to feel positive about your relationship, you're eventually gonna have to face the ultimate question. Where do you go from here? Do you stay with her in the Philippines, unmarried? Do you bring her back to the West and marry her there? Now, I know you guys have all kinds of different opinions on this, and I respect all your points of view. But if it were me, I wouldn't be in any rush to let the government into my bedroom, especially not the Philippines government. What's the benefit to you? Staying single gives you the most freedom and the most options in case things turn bad. Although being married in the Philippines doesn't put you at too much risk financially if you have a good prenup. We take our prenups very seriously, and they rarely get overturned. But if you bring her back to the West, you're gonna have to marry her because they don't just let your Filipino girlfriend come over on a tourist visa and then hang out indefinitely. The third most popular option is to permanently live in the Philippines and get married to your Filipina. A lot of you guys feel very strongly about the institution of marriage and don't want your partner to feel like you've already got one foot out the door. And I respect that. And for a Filipina, there's a stigma attached to being an unmarried woman who's just checking up with a foreigner. People in the West don't really think much about it anymore. But in the Philippines, a woman's family might make her feel like she's a lower status without the actual marriage certificate. Status is very important in this culture. And when your daughter's just living with someone, the parents can feel like she's being used and she could be discarded at any time. Now, I know that some of you are gonna say, but lots of Filipinos shack up with local guys, so what's the difference? Well, first of all, our moms still don't like it even when it's a Filipino guy. But second of all, it's a big deal, a badge of honor when a Filipina lands a foreign guy. But to truly land him, you gotta get that ring on your finger. And right about now, I know what you're probably thinking. Of course, the family wants her to get married so she can open the money pipeline and keep that cash flowing back to mama. And you'd actually be right a lot of the time. But that's a totally different video. Just know that your level of family support is something you need to discuss during that getting to know you period I was talking about. And I hate to tell you this, but the pressure to help her family is independent of your marital status. So it's just one more thing you need to get sorted out before you tackle the big question, the subject of where you want to live. Now, like I said before, if you decide to stay in the Philippines, the risk of a failed relationship is significantly less because as long as you're in her country, you retain the upper hand. Your girlfriend knows instinctively that you can easily find another mate, while her prospects get dimmer with age. It's the old thing about men aging like wine and women aging like milk, which is a saying that's particularly true in the Philippines as far as a woman's dating prospects go. If she returns to the dating pool, she'll be even worse off than when she met you, which is one of the reasons why a Filipina gets so insanely jealous. She knows you're the prize, even if you don't know it. Now, I'm gonna catch a lot of heat from my Filipina sisters for saying this, but in my opinion, it's the truth. And since my job is to give you the best advice I possibly can, I'm gonna call it like I see it. Now, I'm certainly not saying you can't successfully take your wife back to the West. Plenty of men do, but there are some dangers you might not be aware of. Even though your best bet is to live in the Philippines if you can be happy there, let's say you miss the West and all its modern conveniences. You like having a reliable electricity and clean water and a real mattress on your bed instead of a foam pad. And you like to be able to drive your car faster than 10 miles an hour. So you start thinking about returning back home with your wife. But before you get on that plane, you really need to take a close look at those hidden dangers I was talking about. There are 5 main risk factors that will determine whether you have a good chance of success in the West or whether your marriage will crash and burn. So let's go over them. The first risk factor is age. Now, there's nothing wrong with marrying a young Filipina, but as a general rule, the younger the bride, the higher risk that there's trouble ahead. A woman in her early 20s might not even know what she wants yet and doesn't have the foresight to see 30 years down the road. All she knows is that you're this mature stranger with gorgeous eyes from a faraway land that swept her off her feet and married her. All she's heard since she was born was how your country is the promised land and she's excited to live there. She probably has no evil intentions, but the person she is today is not the person she'll be tomorrow. And by marrying a much younger woman and taking her to a foreign country, you have no idea what kind of person she'll grow into. And that goes right along with the second risk factor, her level of maturity. Now, I've met some incredibly mature 20-year-olds, and I've also met some Filipinas in their 40s who acted like irrational children. It's a judgment call that only you can make, but the more mature your Filipina, the better the chance that she can make a smooth transition to a different culture without going into meltdown mode when she realizes that not everything is gonna be exactly how she imagined it. The West can be a pedal-to-the-metal lifestyle, completely different from what a Filipinas used to. When you guys say, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock, you really mean it. And people who are constantly late get a bad reputation. You're expected to be a marginally competent individual. And not everyone has a lot of patience for immature little girls who don't understand why everyone around them won't be more accommodating. And then there's the next factor, her overall attitude. Is she the type of girl who feels entitled to your money and spends it freely without any regard for the hard work it took to get it? Filipinos always seem to have a problem keeping money, and they also don't understand why a rich guy like you can give them as much of it as they want. In the Philippines, there's really not that much to buy, but let a woman loose in a culture of consumerism with stuff for sale that she never even knew existed, and you'll end up with a big problem on your hands. A closet full of expensive shoes, a kitchen jam full of juicers, graters, blenders, and a whole bunch of stuff she's never gonna use anyway. She probably thinks it's your job to fulfill her every whim, just like what you did back in the Philippines, where $1 made her feel like a lottery winner. And if you don't indulge her, she's gonna feel really cheated when she sees the new BMW in the neighbor's driveway, and you have to explain why she ain't getting one. And here's another one you'll have to carefully consider, the strength of your commitment to each other. Now, I'm pretty sure you're fully committed to her, or you wouldn't be bringing her back home. But what's going on in her head? Does your Filipina always have your back, like when you're sick and laying on the couch? Does she take good care of you, or does she take off to go visit a friend? Do you have a healthy line of communication? Does she tell you what she likes and dislikes? The things that upset her or make her happy? Do you really know her? Do you fully trust her? Make sure you're confident about the answers to these questions, because if you're not, it can end up biting you in the butt, big time. The last risk factor isn't a big deal at all in the Philippines, but once you get to the West, it can become a real issue, your age gap. Now, in the past, I've spoken a lot about large age gap relationships. I don't find them morally problematic as long as neither person is being taken advantage of, and both parties are consenting adults. But when you're taking a much younger Filipina home to the West, a large difference in age has danger written all over it. Now, of course, it's not inevitable, but when the waitress asks if you and your daughter are ready to order, get ready for a bumpy ride. When you were back in the Philippines, no one even noticed the age difference, but suddenly it's being pointed out to you at every turn. Your young Filipino bride never thought anything about it either, but now she's getting strange looks from people whenever she's with you, and it makes her feel uncomfortable, like she's done something wrong. Now, there's two different kinds of Filipinas, and you better know in advance which one you're married to. The first kind, the one you want, doesn't give a crap what anyone else says or thinks, which is pretty rare for a Filipina. She might not like getting stared at, but that's not gonna change how determined she is to be with you. In fact, when a blue-haired Karen shoots daggers at you with her eyes, your Filipina makes sure to stand on her tiptoes to plant a big old kiss on your cheek so that Karen can witness her act of devotion to her older hubby. This is the kind of Filipina that'll always have your back. And yes, we do exist. But then there's the other kind of Filipina, and I'm afraid a lot of you guys bring their young brides home without weighing the risk factors and end up with one like this. A Filipina who discovers a whole new world, a new way of thinking with lots of new freedoms to take advantage of. She's eager to dress and act like a Western woman, and she's constantly bombarded by Western media. She's learned about new roles for the sexes, and she's thrilled to find out that in this culture, every woman is a queen that deserves unlimited validation. She's probably met a new group of friends that are closer to her own age. Friends that think your age gap is kinda icky, and they tell her so when you're not around. Her new posse is always trying to get her out to the club to mingle with hot guys that shower her with drinks and propositions. She's overwhelmed by the amount of attention she's getting from the opposite sex. Back home, she was a nobody, but here, she's a hottie. And when she looks at you, you're no longer the rock star she once saw. Now you look pretty damn average, at best. In fact, she might even start to see you like an old man on death's door, and subconsciously decide it's a good idea to start looking around for someone else to partner with once you become too much of a burden. And let's not forget the sex. You awoke a desire she didn't know she had. But of course, things have died down in that department, just like it always eventually does for married couples. But she's too young to understand all that, and now she feels like she's missing out. She didn't plan any of this. She loved you with all her heart, and she probably still loves you. But a young woman in the flower of her youth won't stay happy for long when she realizes that the last years of being attractive to another man will now be spent caring for a senior citizen. Remember how you felt back in the Philippines? Powerful, attractive, and still a catch? Well, now that you're back in the West, you realize you've lost your superpowers. You're just an average guy again, and now it's your wife that's the hot commodity, with plenty of horny guys who would love to sample her wares. So now you're thinking the same thing. How the hell did this happen? Well, you've entered the twilight zone again. But this time, the nightmare's on you. If you married the wrong kind of Filipina, I can almost guarantee you're about to experience a crushing blow to your ego, your finances, and your love life. Now, I hope I didn't totally bum you out with this scenario, but I really needed you to hear me and to realize the danger you could be in if you didn't pay attention to the red flags. It certainly doesn't have to end that way, so choose your partner wisely. And think about the moves you're gonna make on life's chessboard. And remember to check your mate. If she doesn't pass the test for all the warning signs, do not bring her back home. Well, that's it for this episode, and I'll be back on Friday with this year's amazing Christmas special. We're bringing holiday cheer to people who have never had it in a remote village far off the beaten path. You don't want to miss it. Till Friday, folks. If you think about it, I'm kind of like your nurse, attending to your needs and making sure you get a healthy dose of what's good for you in the form of informational and funny videos. After all, laughter is the best medicine. The only thing I ask for my service is that you hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so I'll know when you need assistance. Please also check out my Patreon page for extra content and exclusive features. And while you're recuperating, why not enjoy some of my other videos too? So, are you ready?